Well, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune because it means it's time for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm excited to be here. If you don't know what Rec Poker is all about, we're a serious group of fun-loving amateur poker players. We love studying together, playing together, celebrating together. We take road trips and go hang out in each other's backyards, and we commiserate when things don't go our way. But mostly, we just have a lot of fun talking about poker. Most of what we do here is free. You can sign up for a free community account right now. And because of that, I have to thank our sponsors, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. By the time you're listening to this, we might be right around the corner for our Running Aces weekend, August 4th and 5th, 2023. If you're in Minnesota, I encourage you, come on down. There's going to be a lot of fun happening on August 4th and 5th at Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. Go check it out and come join the fun. I've got the best freaking job in the world. My name's Jim Reed. I'm Bluffsterini in the home game and at Rec Poker Jim on Twitter. And I get to hang out here on Monday nights talking with my poker friends on the Wrecking Crew. The Wrecking Crew is what we call the group of leaders that make all the magic happen here at Rec Poker. If you want to find out more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, or you can just listen up because you're going to meet a couple of them right here, right now.
My name is Eric Jin. You can find me as Binkley on the forums. I play in the PokerStars home game as COM Binkley. And if Twitter is still a thing by the time you listen to this, I am Rec Binkley on Twitter.
Yeah, fingers crossed, I guess. I don't know.
I'm Rob Washam, and you can find me as Rabman50 just about anywhere.
Yeah, Rob's got it down. Such a consummate professional. He's just Radman50 everywhere. Eric and I have all these different handles everywhere. The Young Bucks, we're still figuring it out. Kudos, Rob. So, speaking about figuring it out, getting it all kind of nailed down, removing ambiguity, we're going to be talking to Eric Jin today about his nomenclature for table positions in poker. So, this is a project that Eric's been working on. For a while, he posted a fantastic blog article. If you go to rec.poker/blog, we've got it pinned to the top right now. I think folks understand if you're talking to your friends about poker, which is something that we encourage people to do here a lot, it's important to get the details right. The action, the sizes, the suits of the cards. And one thing that's really important to get right is the position that the players were in. And we talk a lot about nine-handed tables as if there's always nine people sitting at them, as if we never sit at 10-handed tables, as if we never sit at eight-handed tables, as if people aren't missing sometimes. And we use all these complicated ways of expressing positions, like they were in early position, or they were in under the gun +2, or they were in MP +1. And there's a lot of ambiguity and confusion, I think it's fair to say, real confusion that makes it hard for us to have a common language when we talk about poker hands, specifically with regard to poker position. So this is something that Eric's put on his shoulders. And if I do say myself, the guy freaking nailed it, a home run here. So Eric, without further ado, what made you decide that this was something that had to be straightened out? And how did you get to this point with it, with this fantastic blog that you've got set up here?
Yeah, so basically you go to any like different training sites, Jonathan Little, Learn Pro Poker, they all have their own different nomenclature, different software. Poker Tracker is different than Flopzilla is different than RTP is. So you go from one and there's replayers and you watch people have hands and they just call different crazy things in my mind, right? You have UTG +1, UTG +2, and then people say, well, I was eight-handed, and then you have all kinds of things. It's just confusing, and especially when we post on the forums, uh, I thought it just made sense to have something that's clean, understandable, so we don't have to spend a whole 3 paragraphs just to explain positions and how many people are at the table. If we can just cut to the chase, be very concise, and I thought it would have a lot of value to our community.
Yeah.
So,
and Eric, you've got a visual representation here that you'll be sharing. with our video listeners. So if you're listening to this on the audio format of the podcast, I'd encourage you head on over to YouTube and you can watch the video of this. You'll be able to see Eric's examples.
I just
Eric,
want to
yeah,
mention one thing. I'm looking right now on my other screen. I have Jonathan Little's 9-handed charts. And he's got under the gun +1, under the gun +2, and then low jack.
Hmm.
And then on another screen, I'm looking at GTO Wizard 8-handed. And it's under the gun +1, low jack. So in an 8-handed game, under the gun is under the gun. But in Jonathan Little's 9-handed game, under the gun is actually under the gun +1 in an 8-handed game. So
Right.
now I'm really confused. I
Yep.
need to understand what position I should be using when I'm trying to figure out what my pre-flop range chart should look like. Take it away, Eric.
Okay. So you're seeing my screen, hopefully.
Yep, looks
so
good.
this is the blog post, right? And right. So here so it's just confusing, right? Yeah, what's MP2, what's cutoff, what's UTG. So what my intention is to make it accessible, to make it real concise, and to use names that we're already familiar with, right? Not to learn a whole new system, but to do something that we're really familiar with. So I'm going to pull up a kind of a sort of graphic. So my system applies to 9-handed all the way to basically 4-handed. So what I do is you can actually start from the button, right? You always have a button. To the right of the button is the cutoff. You can abbreviate that CO. Then there's the hijack, and then the low jack. Okay, so anybody who's played 6-max, I mean, these are very familiar positions, right? Button, cutoff, hijack, low jack. I mean, that's the word it is. Okay, so as you keep going, then you add what I call the MP. Okay, and then the EP, and then UTG. And that's it. So if you were just to have 6-handed, right, you just basically cut off the earlier position, right? You always start from the button going backwards. And if you're 6-handed, you just basically come to the low jack before you get to the big blind and the small blind. So the MP, EP, and UTG just aren't there because you are 6-handed. If you are 7-handed, you would just add the MP. If you are 8-handed, you would add the MP, and EP. If you're 9-handed, you go to UTG. Now, one thing I will point out is we're used to using the expression under the gun for somebody who's first to act, or early position, as just generally you aren't in close to the button, you aren't, or middle position in that you are you're not real early, you're not late either. So I specifically name the positions by just the letters. So it's UTG, EP, MP. Now, if you want to say early position, you're not talking about a specific EP position, but you're in general, you can call something early position or middle position. But if you use specifically MP, you're only talking about the seat that's to the right of the low jack. And the same with EP, you're talking about the position that's to the left of UTG, but to the right of MP. And that's it.
So I think the one thing that I think trips people up when they're talking about this kind of stuff is you want to intuitively, you want to follow the order of the action. And when we start by talking about under the gun, that's what happens. They're the first player to act. So the small blind and the big blind and the button, they're always going to be called the small blind, the big blind, and the button. But people want to then start under the gun and start counting their way around to the button. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah. I think it's because when when you tell a hand history, you're telling a story, right? You want to
Mhm.
follow chronologically, well, under the gun open and then the next guy. But when we think strategically about table position, it really, the most significant thing is, where are you relative to the button, right?
Yes.
So so when I'm at the table, I start, where's the button? And I just count it backwards. Okay, button, cutoff, hijack, low jack, MP, EP, UTG. I'm
Yep.
always starting from the button. That's the most important thing there.
So I think that's the real key, and I think that's what separates Eric's system here from other systems that have tried, other people's systems that have tried to do this as well. Um, you know, it like you can actually deduce how many players are left to act by the position that you're naming it, and there's no ambiguity about which middle position it is or which early position it is, because you've named it out there, MPEP. So the real key for folks is just focus on starting at the button and working back through the players until you get to the big blind. That's the order in which you should be thinking about hand position, and then having that specificity to it here. And I think it really makes a big difference. It's going to take a while for people to catch on and for everyone to start using this common language. But to me, this is just clearly the most effective, clear way to talk about table position and to remove that ambiguity. So just to sum it up, so I like we're starting with 6 max, which is how a lot of people are playing these days. But what really matters is that the 2 blinds are always the same. And then, like you say, button, cutoff, hijack, low jack. I think everyone can kind of remember those. Those are like the 4 big positions that are behind the blinds.
And
And
then we
then,
add MP, EP, UTG.
yeah. And so when you say I opened MP, you always mean that specific seat where the low jack is to your left. And when you say I opened EP, you always mean that exact seat where the MP player is to your left. And UTG, like you say, is on a 9-handed table, would be the under the gun player, the first player to act.
Yep.
To start the hand. And on an 8-handed table, there just is no UTG position. It goes button, cutoff, hijack, low jack, MP, EP, and now you're out of seats. So what happens if it's 10-handed, Eric? What do we do?
So I've dubbed that the hostage seat because it's worse than being under the gun.
Yeah.
It's to be a hostage.
I like it. I like it. And when you're playing 10-handed, folks will know the more people around the table, the better the odds are that someone's dealt a premium hand, the more players that are going to be left to act after you open. So the earlier position you are at a table with more and more people at it, the tighter your range has to be. And I think if you are in the hostage seat, which would be first to act 10-handed, you are going to feel kind of handcuffed there to a pretty tight range. So I like that. I like that a lot.
I really like it because there's been times where people are describing a hand and they'll say, well, under the gun unraised and then it folded to the button. Okay. How many
Right.
people were at the table?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was 7. Oh, okay. Well, by using Eric's terminology, you would automatically know who opened and how many positions there were from that person to the button.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't necessarily have to know there was 7-handed. You could assume it was 8-handed, but it doesn't matter because you know exactly what position opened by using the nomenclature that Eric gave us.
Yeah. So
and a
it's
lot of times it really
please.
doesn't matter how many people are at the table when you're talking about EP, MP, or low jack, right? Because it's just 6, 7, or 8 doesn't really matter. Because most of what happens in those first few positions are going to be very, very in line with each other. So in other words, under the gun, EP and MP are generally going to be opening the same types of ranges. It's when you get into the low jack, hijack, cutoff, and button where things get spicy, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of why we see so many 6-handed tables these days, because a lot of people do tighten up earlier than the low jack. Those MP, EP, UTG spots, they tend to be playing tighter ranges. They don't play as many hands. And so it does make sense to, not, I see why people eliminate them to juice the action, to get more hands in per orbit, per player, and that kind of thing as well. So that makes a lot of sense. It's a very simple adjustment. And this is one of the things I love most about this. It's all using terminology that we're familiar with, but it's introducing this rigor into how it's applied that I think is just, it's very simple and elegant. And it astounds me that it's taken this long for someone to put it down there. And I just hope that it catches on. Eric, it's going to be a very frustrating time for you until this does catch on, I think, because you really have solved it feels like here, and now we just need the poker world to get in line and stop abusing the language of the poker table. How can we help spread the word? I think we should just use it ourselves in the forums.
Yeah, I mean, for
and...
myself, within my study groups, and whenever we study, this is what I try to use. So just hopefully more people using it and it becomes more normalized. That's my hope.
Well, if people go to rec.poker /blog, then you will see this pinned to the top of it. Also, if you are at the Rec Poker website and you just search the word nomenclature, this is the first one that comes up as well. And this has been something that's been close to Eric's heart for a while, and I'm so glad that you put this together. I do think this is just, objectively speaking, the right way to do it, and I hope that it does catch on. So thanks for that, Eric. Any other little tidbits or anything else you want to tease out of this before we roll on home?
Nope. I just encourage everybody to use it, and I think it'll help people because it encourages you to think about your position relative to the button, which is really critical.
Yeah. Stop counting down from the big blind around chronologically. Think about how many players are between you and the button. That's the one thing that matters more than anything when you're considering opening ranges and that kind of thing. All right. Well, Eric, Jin, thank you so much. Rob, thanks for joining me in the booth here again, like always. And thank you to the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. We got out of here in a smooth, quick one this time, folks. Thank you to listeners. We'll see you again real soon, I hope. Have a good day, everybody.